This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by Jamie Conlan here at the Wasserman headquarters. Jamie, first of all, thank you very much for your time this morning. And how is everything?
All good, Joshua. Until you told me you're the biggest Leewood fan and you're in Nottingham for the one of the fights, or they fight of the year between him and my brother. But good hearing the other side of the story and from a fan's perspective of that night, which was insane.
I mean, I can only apologise from being from Nottingham, but unfortunately I don't choose where I'm from. But no, looking today, we won't reflect on the past. While a great fight that was between Leewood and Michael Conlan. We're here today at the Wasserman headquarters, a big day for yourself, managing Harlem Eubank. Just talk to me about how this all came about between you and Harlem.
I've been in the background for the past while, and just kind of working on opponents and working with him and working with Charlie Beat in terms of picking fights and camps and so on and so forth. And then he just said we want to take a bit of a step up on the road and take over control of everything else that's the handling of the management side of things. And recently enough, that's what we started doing, and we found ourselves with Wasserman.
How important has Harlem's close relationship with Michael been to making, not necessarily this deal come together, but was that a big part in you starting to work with Harlem and be a bit more involved in his career?
With Harlem, we've always had a good relationship because obviously Michael and we travelled the world together. He was a vital cog in the team. They trained together, they sparred together, but people don't realise Harlem came to every fight, was involved in every fight week. So we all became a very close-knit team, and then we got to understand each other more and more, and you just cannot help but like Harlem and try to help Harlem and want to work with Harlem and watching his development. So everyone started, who was close in that team, started to become a team for each fighter. With Harlem, with Abbas Baru, with Kurt Walker, who was also part of the team. There's loads of different fighters within that team. Michael had a very, very close-knit bunch of fighters around them, and everyone had the same goal and were striving for the same thing. So when it was Michael's fight week, Harlem would be dedicating his whole week to Michael. When it's Harlem's, Michael's the same. When it's Abbas, it's the same. And it's brilliant to see, because usually fighters are individuals and they just see themselves, put themselves first, and they don't really, the teammate thing doesn't really, it's not like football, it's not like other team sports, it's you're an individual sport and they look after number one. But when that wee setup developed, you could see that everyone was working for each other, and you just couldn't help it but like Harlem. Got to know him. He is quirky, he is weird, he is different than anyone I've ever met. His stuff, he had said things years ago. I remember in New York, he was telling me about P. Diddy before it all came out about P. Diddy, and that's just a mad thing to happen. But he was telling me everything that was going on about P. Diddy, and all this thing was going to come out, and he's a flat earther, he's a vegan, and he's a unique person. And got to know him, got to understand him, but also got to see the true qualities within Harlem Eubank, both inside the ring and outside the ring. And someone, when he approached me about kind of working together, I jumped at it with both hands. And I know Michael had suggested it at the outset, but once we got in and got involved together, it was a good match, and worked on the last fight for Timo Schwarzkopf, and then this whole process has been a long year, but we're finally now getting some momentum moving forward with Wasserman.
Well, I mean, just hearing from what you're saying about his character, I'm looking forward to interviewing him shortly. Just looking at the future, obviously, we've not seen Harlem in the ring for nearly a year now. Has that year out, has that freshened him up, or do you reckon there could be a loss of momentum with that?
It's been a frustrating year. It's been a year where he's constantly training for fights that weren't really there or weren't happening, but also as a development year. He took himself off to Miami. He went out with Abbas, learned with Jorge Rubio a bit. Him and Charlie Beat went out and seen a new outlook in terms of training, in terms of sparring, in terms of S&C, and all that comes with the Yank setup. Seeing a bit more professionalism in the approach to training, and he's kind of took that back now to the gym in Red Hill, and what they're working on, him and Charlie now, has made them probably better, put them in a better position. It's made him understand the true essence of being frustrated within the sport, where you have big fights sitting right in front of you, but you're unable to kind of get them over the line or actually get in the ring. He's trained for various different fights there, and it was just, things just kept falling off or not happening, and he's learned a lot within himself, and it it's took a lot this year, but also I think when the year is done, after he fights coming up and then comes in the next year, he'll be a better man for it.
Just looking back in at the end of March, we saw Harlem and Adam Azim get brought into the ring at the Fabio Wardley-Fraser-Clark fight, with the fight seemingly getting announced there, but then it all came out the fight wasn't actually signed yet. Where was the downfall in that fight getting made? Because most British boxing fans were under the impression that that fight was going to be next, and now it doesn't seem like that's the plan.
No, it's not the plan. Adam had got injured, so it was all agreed, all done, and then Adam picked up an injury for the initial date that was scheduled for June, and then after that it was a waiting game. I don't think they had really a place to put it, and it was just constantly waiting on the hook, which didn't do Harlem any good, because he was constantly preparing for a fight and building himself up to peak preparation. His periodization of training was always coming up to try and get to the perfect moment for a fight, and it was just constantly being pushed, and it was no real fault of anyone's then that we couldn't really find a home for it. And we had a sit down as a team and just discussed, we have to look at what's best for Harlem Eubank now, and is the fight with Adam Azim the right time or right fight or anything to do with Harlem Eubank? No, because it's not putting Harlem first. So internally we had sat down and said, right, we got to put Harlem first, and we had to look open market. And once we went to open market, Wasserman came. We had a fantastic meeting with Wasserman, and this was the team that really was going to put Harlem first. This was the team wasn't lining Harlem up for an opponent or just setting them up to be a B-side on a big fight. It was a team that was going to invest in Harlem's career, invest in a long-term strategic plan for Harlem, and give him opportunities to grow as a fighter, as well as big opportunities and big fights down the line. The fight with Adam Azim is probably always going to be there now, because, as you said, the build-up, the downfall of the build-up, the big release in the arena, but also the fight falling through and how it's fell through. They'll be entwined. They have to meet someday. There's an issue now with the weight. Harlem's going to campaign at 147. I know Adam was willing to move up and we do it at a catch weight, but I think now it makes the fight even bigger in the future.
So you mentioned obviously wanting a team that's going to put Harlem first. We've got that here now with Wasserman. You mentioned that they'll put Harlem first. What fights do you look at now in order to manoeuvre Harlem Eubank closer to obviously the pinnacle of the sport, a world title shot?
Well, firstly, getting back in the ring this year, shaking off what's been a terrible year, but also feeling out the new weight at 147. And then I think we start the old-fashioned route. I think we go straight in for British titles. I think we look at Liam Taylor, Harry Scarf. We look at that, and then you're going to go for the big names in the divisions. Whoever at 147, 140 mixed, there is some fantastic fighters there. You say Azim, you say Dalton Smith. Ultimately, Harlem Eubank wants Conor Benn. He wants that Benn Eubank rivalry. He wants to carry the flag into the next generation. He has to prove his worth to get there, so he has to bring something to the table, and that's what we feel going through the British title routes, getting a big marquee name, and then kind of looking for that big Conor Benn. Big fight like that. But Azim, Dalton Smiths, they're all in the limelight that we want. O'Hara Davis, a big UK domestic clash would be fantastic. So he's thereabouts. Getting the ring rust off first and foremost, bringing the British title to Brighton would be fantastic, and then kind of going and looking for the big UK names or big international names.
What was the reason for making this move up to 147?
It struggled. So the last two fights, it was a big struggle, but being up close and personal for Timo Schwarzkopf, I'd really seen how much he had to kind of cut down. He's small enough, but when you actually look at him, his stature is big, his legs are big, he carries a lot of weight around his midriff, he has big shoulders, he is very stocky at 147. So at 140, the last cut was real tight, and I could see it in the fight. Even though how Schwarzkopf went, he seen out some tough rounds and then was able to get the stoppage win towards the end. It was a fantastic performance, but if anyone's seen what he'd went through to get to that 140 pound weight limit, they would realise that he needs either to move up or to look at his dad, which he's a vegan. It's very hard for him to kind of alter things. So we looked at things and improved on the S&C, build a wee bit of muscle into it. This next fight hopefully will be a feel out process at 147, get a feel for the weight, get a feel for the height. They are bigger guys, they are a lot more physical, so it's kind of feeling into the weight as well. But in the gym you see him sparring with late middles, and he handles them with ease, and he's got fantastic speed, fantastic reflexes that he can carry up to 147 is what he had at 140, and it's just about improving on that strength and physique.
And you mentioned obviously ultimately Harlem wanting the Conor Benn fight. How tricky do you feel that fight would be to make once Harlem's at the level of that fight being appealing to the fans? Because it's most fans obviously have their heart set on Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr., but obviously different weight classes. How do you get Harlem into that position where that fight becomes appealing for British boxing fans?
Harlem has to go and do that. He has to prove his worth, to say. Yes, the name is one thing. The commercial value of the name is another thing. But now he has to go out and has to bring something to the table, more titles, more recognition, and a big fight before that. So he needs to kind of knock off a marquee name or someone that people have named or has recognition, and then we kind of can come straight into the Conor Benn mix, because I think it's there. I think Chris is too big. I think Conor is giving away too much to go to Chris, but I think we're knocking on the door now to enter the division what Chris is in, or what Conor Benn is in. And we need to make a name for himself. So Harlem will have to go out and do it, as was said, with the British title route, with the other names that are in the division, to kind of make a name and then bring himself in. I get their point of view that commercially he's not big enough for us right now, but within a few fights, hopefully we'll be there.
Do you feel that the Conor Benn fight is realistic for Harlem, though, especially with everything going on with Conor at the moment? We're still unsure as to when we'll see him back in boxing in Britain.
I'm not really privy to his situation and what's going on, but just like yourself, I'm on the outside. I don't know how it's all going to play at his end, but it's not really for me to judge or make a decision. I think there's something going on. Maybe he can get to the end of it, but until he clears his name himself, he's going to have to sort out his stuff. All Harlem has to do, and all we have to do, is focus on Harlem to get to that point where he can fight a Conor Benn or another big name at 147.
And just moving away from Harlem, just quickly a little bit on also your brother Michael Conlan. A new change for him, training at the Steel City Gym in Sheffield. It seemed, for yourself, how good of a fit do you feel he'll be for the Steel City way?
We've always been big supporters of what Grant Smith has done, and very, very, you have to appreciate how he's built fighters and brought them through. What he's done with Sonny, what he's done with Dalton, what he's done Junaid Boston. He's constantly delivering and developing fighters, and it's I think it's a right fit for Michael in terms of stylistically. I think it's a right fit for Michael in terms of the other characters in the gym that he can feed off. He is a very emotional character that likes to have a good, vibrant gym to kind of all working together, and I think he's got that, and he's going to find a wide mix of characters in that gym, but also driven, one set main fighters that all want to achieve greatness. So if he wants to get back in the mix, I think that's the right move for him. And stylistically, I think him and Grant have really hit it off.
What plan do you look at taking for Michael, obviously, to get him back to a world title shot?
Michael just needs to find Michael. He needs to get back into his own groove and get it back into himself. Last year was a terrible year, both inside the ring and outside the ring. He probably should never have fought the fight with Jordan Gill, and that was, in hindsight, it was a big mistake. But at the time, we thought he could overcome it. But now he's just got to find himself, got to find his feet. Don't rush into anything. Take time with Grant Smith. Develop a relationship with Grant Smith. Develop a relationship within the gym. Find the style, find the groove, and then kind of start to take your time to get back in with building process into the 126 division.
Just very quickly, just want to get your thoughts. Obviously, it's a very big month in boxing. We see Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois at the end of this month at Wembley. How do you see that fight unfolding?
It's intriguing. Dubois has brought something else out in AJ, which is exciting. It's made a really exciting fight. I've always thought AJ steamrolled him, if I'm being brutally honest, but as it's getting closer and it's building up, I'm getting sucked into the Dubois hype train. I'm thinking this actually could be a fight. This could actually be a real fire fight. I've been impressed with Dubois recently. He's brought something else to the table. Frank has really cracked the whip with him, and he's really driven him to be a different man to what he was. You seen at the start of the career, he was really shy, he was really coy, he would have been behind a mask a lot of the time. He didn't know how to face adversity, And I think he has took him as he's went he's fought Usyk away from home. He's lost to Joe Joyce through lockdown. He's had a lot of ups and downs, but he's overcame a lot. So I think he's more of a live dog than I initially gave him credit for. But I still think AJ in explosive fashion, but in an explosive fight, I think he does him within 3 or 4 rounds.
Well, Jamie, thank you very much for your time. It's good to talk to you today, and we look forward to seeing Harlem Eubank and return. Thank you.
Thanks very much, mate.